Old friend JD PicKell, former host of the hit Waco multimedia show Uptempo, released his Big 12 tiers this week and put Arizona and UCF at the bottom. That makes sense. That's his.
Can we give the names of the tiers? I kind of like what JD did with this.
Yeah. So tier number 1 says, I can explain it. This is him justifying the top 4 teams he puts in the Big 12. I'll bury the lead a bit and give you those 4 in a second. Then tier 2, I've got a feeling.
The Black Eyed Peas tier.
There's a chance here. Tier 3 says a tier of their own. There's only one school featured there. Yeah. The next 3, the final 3, movie death. Not really dead. He says, not really dead. Just,
Glenn, Walking Dead.
Yeah.
You think
the actor's alive, or yeah.
Or
then there is would be just like the Big 12 is the second to last column, which in essence to me means it'd be crazy if these teams won, but it's also pretty Big 12 of them to do so. Followed by this just feels bad for Arizona and UCF. I already gave you that one, which is legit. He starts with the top 4 that he can explain winning a Big 12 title. He omits Texas Tech. He omits Kansas State, 2 popular picks for the Big 12 championship. He includes Arizona State, Iowa State, BYU, and you're fighting Baylor Bears.
JD PicKell's Baylor Bears. Of course. I would probably rather have Kansas State in there than BYU, mainly because of the situation we talked about in the first segment with Jake Retzlaff. I know BYU fans, he's not the whole team. I know, but I would just have a better feeling than JD, of course, of having Kansas State with that well-rounded team and their quarterback in there, who I'm still giving some belief to. I'm not giving the hype I was last year. I'd probably have Kansas State above there. And with the Tech thing, I kind of want to believe in Tech. I just need to see it.
If there was ever a year to believe in Tech, it feels like it has to be this one. It really has to be this one.
They've kind of hooked me the last couple of years. I've said this on the show before, not quite as this is Tech's year to win the Big 12, but I can see a way where Tech is in Arlington for the Big 12 championship game, that kind of thought. And I know they got way more talented. They're one of those teams that is just a B word to rank, man. You just don't know where to put them. And with how good the quarterbacks are in this conference, I see a guy in Tech who's just a middle of the road, good enough, get the car in the garage, kind of like a Jake Retzlaff kind of quarterback. And it's tough for me when we put so much importance on that position. It's tough for me to pick them over an Arizona State or a Baylor or even an Iowa State. So, I think Tech, there is a world where Tech wins 10 games. They hate doing that. They never do that. But there is a way, a road for them to win 10 games this year with that talent on the roster and somewhat easy schedule by Big 12 standards. Pretty easy schedule.
I don't mind there. I don't mind the way that theirs stacks up. Shehan Jayaraja just wrote a massive piece about Texas Tech, spent time in Lubbock. Really, really wanted you to read it too. Really made sure that was emphasized.
Yeah.
And at the heart of how I explain Texas Tech, it's just their best season, 8-4. Their worst season, 8-4. We got a good squad this year.
Way to put
That's probably 8-4. It's gonna be a tough one this year. 7-5.
and it's what Baylor and TCU used to be, right? Before Gary Patterson, that's what you would have said about TCU. They've got a great squad. Maybe they can eke out 9-3. That's once every 5 or 10 years you have a year like that. Or Baylor before Art Briles. Obviously they had some good Grant Taft teams in the early 80s, but for a long time it was 8-4. That's a hell of a year for Baylor. And then they kind of take that next step. I don't know. Iowa State, same thing. They didn't win 10 games before last year, right? Even their best teams with a Super Bowl quarterback on the team leading it wouldn't get to 10 wins. That's the same thing we're dealing with Tech here.
Let's pause what you just said. Best tight end in college football.
Yep.
The number 1 fantasy running back in the NFL.
But
the Super Bowl quarterback, Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
And they went to 6-6. It wasn't even failed to win 10 games. They went 6-6.
Yeah. That was Interesting.
With a damn good head coach, too.
Yes. A team like that in the Big 12. Like, again, we're not talking about a young, super talented SEC West team that they get still slaughtered by Alabama and LSU. And like, it sounds like I'm describing A&M here. But like, there's no reason that those teams, I would give 2 years of those teams at Iowa State didn't go 10-2. Like, no real excuse for that.
Which they almost did. The year prior was like, oh, this is a really good Iowa State team, and they're bringing everyone back. And then they just decided to be bad.
Yeah, there was that one. It was that year, and I don't remember which one it was that they did that. Was it 21? And they were top 15, maybe even top 10 going into the season. They lost to Iowa week 2, and then lost to Baylor in the first conference game. They were still ranked, and it just kind of fell apart after that.
That's what it was. The year prior, they went to the Big 12 championship and played Oklahoma.
Yes, and Matt Campbell was furious. If you can believe that.
Then after, because his linebacker, was it Will McDonald?
It might have been.
Dear God, what a loaded Iowa State team was, I think, thrown out pretty immediately, and then Oklahoma goes on to win, and you're like, okay, it's fine, Iowa State, you're bringing everybody back, and hello, 6-6. That encapsulates, now that you mention it, a good portion of Big 12 teams that have kind of felt in that realm. I think Oklahoma State's exonerated from that. They have been consistently in that 9-10 win range over the course of Gundy's career. You could exonerate some of those good, solid, early Big 12 West Virginia teams that were great. I mean, there's been consistency for 3-4 years out of some Big 12 schools, and I don't know if we're seeing that yet, and maybe that's why PicKell's list looks the way it does, because we didn't expect Arizona State, and Baylor was 3-9 a couple of years ago, and a UCF miracle away from 2-10. Iowa State lost some major NFL production, and he still has them in that top category. In that second category,
that's a big question for them.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd put them top 4.
I like their defense enough that I still have them kind of in this tier. But like, going back to the Tech thing, like if we see by week 4 or 5 that this Tech thing is kind of working out, which I know is kind of getting ahead of the skis when it comes to this team, I would maybe rethink how I would look at Tech versus Iowa State.
Yeah, but it could work out. Tech could start 6-0 and then finish 8-4. Which would be a very Texas Tech thing to do. And that second tier is TCU, Texas Tech, Kansas State. The closer we get to the football season, the more I'm kind of liking TCU. 2 NFL caliber wide receivers and a really good quarterback in Josh Hoover. TCU's dangerous. Yeah,
I feel like I've kind of been pumping up the hype train a little bit for TCU of like, we're not looking long and hard enough at this team, but there's still a lot of question marks on that defense specifically. They've got to get a run game back. Their run game was horrible last year. It was non-existent. They couldn't stop the run either. Those are 2 things you need to have even in this quarterback-heavy Big 12 conference. I like Hoover a lot. I like the weapons he's got to throw to. There's still a lot of questions for me to think that they could compete for the conference title this year.
Yeah, the rest of this I kind of struggle to argue with. He says Colorado's in a tier of their own, kind of that 8 spot with the Big 12.
It's a good way to put it, because I don't know what they are. He's not saying good or bad. It's like, I don't know.
They were chomping at 10 wins last season, and they could certainly do that again. Deion Sanders proves he could win, and they also lost a Heisman Trophy winner and a 4th-round quarterback or 5th-round
retired number quarterback.
And past that, the movie Death features Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State. I think he's a little low on Kansas. Utah and Oklahoma State. I also think Utah's due for a bounce back.
Probably. I do want to talk about Oklahoma State for 1 second. Yeah. Like, if we're talking movie death, not really dead, this is Indiana Jones with that really annoying woman in Short Round, and they jump out of the plane on a raft into a river on the side of a mountain and just survive. That's Oklahoma State's not really dead. I don't see much from this team that I'm like, oh yeah, they're much better than last year. I'm not seeing it yet. I know they actually had a decent transfer portal too, not Tech, and not nearly at like the top of the conference, but they were decent at that. I don't see much life in Oklahoma State. Of course, with Utah, there is absolutely that chance at at New Life. I'm not a huge Devin Dampier guy. This is one of the few teams I look at in this conference that I say everything else around the quarterback could get them to a level that they weren't at last year. That's where I see Utah. I just still. Again, I saw the Zaquan Finn thing at Baylor last year. Devin Dampier comes in, a very similar player, not quite as good as Zaquan Finn. That guy doesn't get you to a Big 12 championship in year one. Just doesn't. And Kansas is Kansas. I don't know. Lost their OC, who was really good for them last year.
I hate the whole law of averages thing. Because it's, I say Cam, Utah went 9-3. Yeah. Kansas went 9-3. Yeah. Oklahoma State went 9-3. I'm not stunned by any of those things. Houston went 9-3. I'm going, you know what? I can see it somewhere in there.
Houston's the biggest wild card team in this conference.
There's just they could be the Arizona State. Oh, did I just cook?
Chat.
Did I just cook?
Did DCT cook right there?
They could be the Arizona State.
If Wegman is what they say he is, and again, we saw him at A&M. There's almost like an A&M tax, right? Where that team, that program is just so brain dead and can't get out of their own way that you need to grade them on the scale of how they played at A&M. That Houston defense was legit last year. They were an average quarterback away from being 8-4. Like, I truly believe that. And maybe they would have beat TCU by 4 touchdowns instead of 2. But if Connor Wegman is this guy, even as like a above average, pretty good Big 12 quarterback, they can really surprise some teams. Houston is my kind of like dark horse, make some noise, watch out for this team this year.
I know we've gone kind of long here, but I'm continuing to remind myself how crazy the Big 12 is. Is it wild to say Willie Fritz might be, and this will come to fruition in 2 years, might be a top 3 head coach in the Big 12? Like he's been one of the best in college football, just under the radar, sneaky national champion at Sam Houston State, goes to Tulane and takes a program that was terrible, genuinely terrible,
awful, and
takes them to a Cotton Bowl win against Lincoln Riley's USC team. That's a good football coach.
He's super impressive, man. Like, if you want to play this down the road, like 2-3 years, that and say that Houston wins a Big 12 championship and is in a New Year's Six Bowl, for me, that puts Willie Fritz ahead of a lot of coaches in this conference, right? It could well put him ahead of Dave Aranda, depending on what happens in this next year or two.
He has as many New Year's Six, whatever they call them.
And he would have done it with 2 teams in this scenario. He would have done it with 2 teams in 2 different conferences. So to me, that could be better than what Dave Aranda has done. That could be better than what, obviously, what Joey McGuire has done. Kalani Sitake, that would get you into the playoff if you win this conference, right? So it could be better than what Kenny Dillingham has done to this point. This is playing a pretty big hypothetical game, but yeah, it could be better than what Sonny Dykes has done. I know he won a playoff game and then lost the other one on a nail biter, but it would be just as impressive as what a lot of these guys have done, if that's what he's able to do in the next 2-3 years. Win a conference championship, go to a college football playoff, I guess not a New Year's Six Bowl anymore. That would put him in the highest echelon, I think. Yeah.
That was the longest segment in Locked On Big 12 history.
Better than Gundy.
I still didn't tell you that West Virginia, Houston, Cincinnati would be just like the Big 12 to be competitive. Coming up, honor code.